This movie is for the fans, and I am so happy about that. Hey there, this is your. You know what? Let's skip the intro. We're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, and this video does contain spoilers, so don't get mad at me when I talk about spoilery things. This movie was so fun to watch, and had me on the edge of my seat literally every time I was in theater. Now, is it perfect? No, it is not. It has a lot of convoluted explanations for things, and then things are not always explained. But that's okay, because this is the Fox universe, or it was. So it's gonna be a little messy. But the story, even though it's not as strong as the last two Deadpool movies, is still good. And it makes Deadpool a more complex character that we don't necessarily get to see. Because a lot of times when we think of Deadpool, especially nowadays, we just think of him as a jokey character, who makes jokes, who breaks the fourth wall, who talks to us, and then it's really raunchy, right? But I think we forget about Deadpool is that he is a extremely depressed character. He knows how bad of a guy he is, but he doesn't know how to live with himself. That's why he makes all the jokes, to make himself feel better, and because he's also very mentally ill because of all the things that would happen to him. And they actually show that in this movie. And yes, I know they technically did show that in the first two movies, but in here it's different because in this one he does have everything he wants, but he's still extremely depressed. Because Deadpool is not by himself in this one and has a straight arrow in Wolverine, we get to see, the buddy cop type thing in this movie of showing, Deadpool's, obnoxiousness, how annoying he is to other people and funny to us. And then someone else who sees him be weird or being extremely annoyed and just points it out or, punches him in the face and says, you know what, stop, you are obnoxious, annoying. And I actually love that dynamic so much in this movie. But another thing I really like is they kind of, poke fun the fact that technically he is being put into the MCU, even though that's not what happened in this movie at all. Yes, he went into the MCU, literally, but he didn't stay. The whole point of the film was that he had to be happy with his own universe, and he kind of figures that out because he finds out it's going to get destroyed. And it's so funny because that led into an amazing intro to the film with Bye Bye by NSYNC. And I did not expect that to be, the best thing ever. I heard about it. Of course, I got spoiled by that so many times, but I was like, it's going to probably be good, but that's about it. I didn't think anything other than that. When I went to the theater and I heard that music and I saw Deadpool massacre all the TV agents, I was so blown away. And the fact that he technically desecrated Wolverine's grave. And this actually makes me want to talk about that real quick, because I know people would be saying, this movie destroys Logan because, he desecrated his grave, right? Well, first of all, why are you watching a Deadpool movie if you don't expect that type of behavior? And two, this doesn't change that ending at all. Wolverine from Logan is still dead. The Wolverine that we got in this film, it is not the same Wolverine. They are clearly new universe, and they even make fun of that by showing, look at all the other Wolverines that we have in our multiverse. Like with the cameos that they showed here, with all the Wolverines that Deadpool needed to find. We gotta see Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. We gotta see the actual old man Logan type look from the comics. We gotta see actual Wolverine and Hulk look in here. It was so awesome to see that little reference with his claws. Now, I may get hate. I loved it, but because of the realism, or quote unquote realism, of what the claws would be from his forearms, it doesn't fit too well because, the claws don't stretch out as much, but it was still awesome, to be honest. But then we also see Patch, which is one of Wolverine's worst disguises ever. At least Clark Kent has glasses, but no, you have an eye patch. Okay, I guess that's how we do it. And I almost forgot to mention the comic accurate size Wolverine. And I love this version, but I hate the comments that came with it. That people are saying oh, look, he looks comic accurate and this looks terrible. You don't always have to have it comic accurate. But the problem is they just took Hugh Jackman and just kind of shrunk him down. If there was an actual actor that was actually 5'3", then it would look more normal. I don't understand people's reasoning at this point. This was supposed to be a joke. Also, am I the only one who actually felt bad for this Wolverine? Because it actually looked like he was genuinely ready to help Deadpool, because he said, who's asking? As if a genuine question. But then when Deadpool started making fun of him, well, of course, Wolverine was ready to fight. And then we got to see a cover of Wolverine on an X. And that was cool. I've seen that image. I've never actually read the comic. I don't want everyone to think I know everything about it. I don't. I just liked the cover. And this actually also got me into a thing that I kept seeing that was kind of funny. All the people who were, so offended that either Deadpool was, making fun of religion or doing religious type imagery. How are you watching a Deadpool film? How are you getting mad about that? That's the whole joke about Deadpool. Nothing is sacred to him. He will make fun of everything. He literally, again, desecrated Wolverine's corpse from Logan, one of the best movies we've seen in a long time. So I don't know why you're saying that, this is not your Deadpool, because that's something I would also hear about that. How is this not Deadpool? Please go watch the other films if you think Deadpool is actually, a positive character. That's weird. But speaking of, characters with, Wolverine, I love this version of Wolverine. He's not the Wolverine that we knew beforehand, and that's okay. But because of the infinite multiverse, he can be sort of like him. This is a version of Wolverine who lost everything, kind of like the Logan version. Except instead of, the water supply and then Xavier's seizures causing the X-Men to die, no, it was just a bunch of random people, probably, friends of humanity, people with tech to kill the X-Men. I thought they were going to do a reference to when, in the actual Old Man Logan story, where Wolverine killed all the X-Men by Mysterio's hand. But, they can't talk about Mysterio because that belongs to Sony. So that kind of makes sense to switch it. But the fact that they call him the worst Wolverine is pretty interesting, because there's probably a lot of terrible versions of Wolverine, but I think the reason why they call him the worst one is because he didn't do anything after all his X-Men died. He just kind of sulked around and just kind of hated life, and more, was more cynical than the regular Wolverine we were used to, which is actually kind of fun to see. I miss seeing Wolverine kind of like that. But it does something with that depression that I've wanted for so long, to finally get to see Wolverine's costume. Yes, we got to see the promotional stuff, the leak stuff, when this movie was being announced. But seeing it in the film was so cool. And the story behind the suit was what I personally thought would be a perfect way of having him wear it. Because of the X-Men dying in his universe, he wears a suit as a way of honoring them, because he failed them, so he thinks that this is a memory for them. Which it kind of gets me into something, and people could ask me, how would you make Wolverine wear the silly costume if, Wolverine's not a character like that? I said that just make it that Jean wanted him to wear it, or that, Xavier wanted to wear him. That's it. And they do that in this movie, and that was so awesome. It was they actually did that way of doing it, and it was so cool. And then even cooler when we saw, the suit still get bloody and damaged and all that stuff, and the arms get ripped off, so we see the muscle more comic accurate. And then the end, we get to see that beautiful mask. The fact that it is not nanotech, it is not, something that just kind of, pops up like that. It is something that's actually there. Yes, of course, they use CGI for the eyes. But that was so cool. This has been so long since we got to see Wolverine with his mask in live action. I don't think we ever really got to see that. And they didn't just do that, with, his normal eyes underneath. No, they used CGI for the eyes to work. And that was everything. Yes, some of the CGI for the mask wasn't all there, but it was such fan service that it did not matter to me. And that actually makes me say that because I saw the mask just show up in the last act, I was generally worried that by the end of, when Deadpool and Wolverine fight all the Deadpools that happen in this movie, he was gonna take it off. That's literally what I was worried about. But they didn't do that. They waited until the right moment to take off the mask. I was so happy that they actually, kept it on, because Hugh Jackman is a big actor. So I was worried. But the fact that he was, you know what? I'm gonna keep it. Also, we got to see one of the most sexiest scenes ever of Hugh Jackman with his shirt off. And I could not stop looking. I am a straight man, but I will admit that was amazing to see. And the cameos in this movie. Oh my god. I had the time of my life with the cameos. The fact that we got to see Chris Hemsworth back as Johnny Storm was wild. Deadpool was being oh my god, it's Chris Evans. We're going to see Captain America, right? And we were and I was really? They're going to introduce Captain America in this Fox, goodbye movie? My mind did not think actually Johnny Storm. I know someone's mind did. But because what's funny is that when Deadpool was saying oh my god, he's gonna say it, instead of assemble, because I even said that too, he said flame on. I was what? And then he flew, and then immediately got trapped by pyro. But still, Also, I'm pretty sure in the comics, Johnny Storm can also take fire away. I could be wrong, so let me know in the comment down below. But that was so cool to actually see him in this film. And you know what's funny about that? Chris Evans said he would only do the film if he got to swear like a sailor so much. And I respect that man so much because he played a Boy Scout in the MCU for so long. So the fact that he actually got to swear in the end was fantastic. Ah, you see what I did there? But then everything else, seeing the old Sabretooth was awesome. The fight between Logan and him was so cool. We actually got to see an animalistic Logan, which is weird to say that we haven't really got to see that, with him crawling in all fours. It was so cool. And then seeing, all the other people in the void, besides Chris. We saw to see Elektra. We got to see Laura Kinney. And then we got to see Blade. I'm going to be very real. I know everyone screamed when they saw Blade. I didn't. I watched Blade, but it was never something that I thought was, the best thing in the world. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but that's just how I felt. A cameo I did like was Channing Tatum as Gambit. Now, it may be weird to be extremely excited for a cameo of someone who never originally played that character. But the thing is, throughout these years, I knew about the failed Gambit movie that was coming out that he was supposed to play as. And the fact that they kind of used the fact that everyone here was from the void to reference that, because that movie never got made, the way Gambit talks here is as someone who never got to be a hero, never got to show his true colors, and that's a good reflection to what could have been back then. Like, he has his Cajun accent, and it's hilarious. It's awesome. This costume is so comic accurate. The way he fought, I just love that so much. And it's weird to, be so excited for a cameo that really never really would have existed, to be honest. But that's the stuff I love about this movie. They treated everyone with respect. They didn't just make fun of each character that, because the movie didn't do well. Like, even Elektra. Elektra did not do well. Elektra, the movie, did not do well. Even the Daredevil movie that, she was in did not do well. But they did not, make fun of her. They did not say that, she was terrible for her movie. No, they treated her as Elektra, and they made her a badass. It was awesome. We got to see Laura Kinney again, which was awesome, X-23. And even though this is technically a alternate universe, they kind of used that to also have a good send-off to the relationship between Wolverine and X-23. And I know some people were weirded out that, she was talking to Logan as if she was her Wolverine. The reason I'm fine with that is because she's not talking to him as if she's her Wolverine. She's talking to him to let him know that he could have been a good person. He can, because that was the whole problem with this Wolverine. Because he failed, he felt like he couldn't do much. So he needed a pep talk from someone who would, quote unquote, know him, even if technically that's not him, if that makes sense. And that's the type of stuff. The multiverse, they did that so perfectly. And what's weird of me out is that, this is a Deadpool movie. It's a raunchy, gross, funny movie. And they had respect for the multiverse in such an interesting way. Unlike the MCU, which is funny because, technically this is in the MCU multiverse, which is, something I never really liked, to be honest. But again, this movie is not perfect. It has some flaws, like the actual story to get Deadpool to even, want to try to be a hero again was interesting, or how the TVA wanted him was something really convoluted. They don't fill us all in on what happened or what's going to go on. It's really weird because he doesn't go into the MCU. He stays in his universe. Deadpool does stay in his universe. And I think that was a funny, FU to Marvel, even though he's in there because he decides to stay in his universe and, rekindle his relationship with Vanessa. And that even though he wanted to switch to the MCU, he finds the worth in his own universe, even if it could be ending. And that is a fun, cool message. Even with Wolverine. Again, this is not the same Wolverine, so it's fun to see him doing his thing. What's interesting is that Hugh Jackman was so interested when he got to see the costumes. Like, why haven't I been wearing this since day one? And that's awesome. And that's just my thoughts on the Deadpool Wolverine movie. I know this movie was literally everywhere because I couldn't figure out a way to talk about it. But I had to get my thoughts across because I love this movie. And this feels so special to us early 2000s kids who grew up with all the Fox movies, from the Fantastic Four to Blade to the X-Men movies to the Daredevil and Elektra film. Even though those movies were bad, those were still our childhood. So it was so fun to look back on. Did you grow up in the early 2000s? Did you just see this movie as something of a crash grab to, get people excited for Deadpool being in the MCU? I just want to know all your opinions. I don't care what it is. I'd be very just interested in what you thought. I loved it. What did you think? But if there's nothing else, this has been Dudamite. This has been Convoluted. I hope to see everyone in the next video.